Something shocking is happening right now. U.S. President Donald Trump is going head-to-head with the International Criminal Court over the arrest of former Filipino President Rodrigo Duterte. And the way Trump is fighting back will leave you stunned. First, let's break down what's really happening. The ICC, created in 2002, is a global court that prosecutes people for major crimes like war crimes and crimes against humanity. But in recent years, it has faced major backlash, especially from powerful countries like the US and the Philippines. In 2022, the ICC launched an investigation into Duterte's controversial war on drugs, which reportedly led to thousands of deaths. Human rights groups claim mass killings took place, but Duterte's government strongly denies it, saying their actions were necessary to fight crime. Now, Trump is stepping in, and his response is fierce. He has openly condemned the ICC, calling the investigation unfair and politically motivated. Trump has even hinted at taking action against the court itself. His tough stance isn't surprising, considering the US has long resisted ICC authority. Could this escalate into an international showdown? Stay tuned. When former Filipino President Rodrigo Duterte clashed with the US over human rights issues, tensions exploded. Furious over American criticism, Duterte fired back with strong anti-US remarks, even threatening to cut ties with the longtime ally. But everything took a surprising turn when Donald Trump stepped into the White House in December 2016. Almost immediately, Trump's team issued a statement highlighting the long friendship between the US and the Philippines. Instead of pushing back against Duterte, Trump embraced him as a key partner, signaling a dramatic shift in US policy. The two leaders found common ground, and Duterte later claimed that Trump personally praised his brutal war on drugs, saying the Philippines was handling it the right way. This shocking show of support raised eyebrows worldwide. Then came another bombshell move. In April 2017, Trump invited Duterte to the White House. The invitation sparked outrage among human rights activists, who saw it as a betrayal of America's democratic values. But for Trump, strategy came first, and he made it clear that he valued political alliances over human rights concerns. Was this a smart diplomatic move or a dangerous gamble? The world was watching. When Donald Trump and Rodrigo Duterte finally met face-to-face at the ASEAN summit, the world watched closely. According to reports, their talks mainly focused on trade and Duterte's brutal drug war. But what shocked many was what wasn't discussed: human rights. While the White House statement was vague, Duterte's spokesman revealed something unbelievable. Trump never even mentioned human rights concerns. This only strengthened the belief that Trump was willing to ignore human rights violations in exchange for a strong alliance with the Philippines. Trump's handling of Duterte reflected a huge shift in U.S. foreign policy. Unlike his predecessor, Barack Obama, who openly criticized human rights abuses, Trump took a hands-off approach. His no-interference stance allowed Duterte to continue his controversial policies without fear of U.S. backlash. This approach won Duterte over, as he had long been furious over outside criticism of his leadership. Under Trump, U.S.-Philippines relations became stronger, focusing on security and mutual interests rather than human rights. The two leaders shared a unique bond, one built on power, strategy, and a complete disregard for traditional diplomacy. This unexpected friendship shook global politics, leaving many wondering, was it loyalty or just political convenience? The US and the Philippines share a deep, complicated history filled with war, sacrifice, and powerful agreements. Their bond started in 1898, when the US took control of the Philippines from Spain through the Treaty of Paris, beginning decades of American rule. During this time, the U.S. introduced American-style education, roads, and political systems, shaping the Philippines into what it is today. But not everyone accepted this change. The Philippine-American War erupted as Filipinos resisted foreign rule. Despite the fight, U.S. control remained until the Philippines gained Commonwealth status in 1935 and finally full independence on July 4, 1946. World War II changed everything. The Philippines became a major battleground in the Pacific, and Filipino and American soldiers fought together against Japanese forces. The war left the country in ruins, but the US provided massive aid to help rebuild. In 1951, both nations signed the Mutual Defense Treaty, vowing to protect each other in times of war. During the Cold War, the US used the Philippines as a key military stronghold, setting up massive bases like Clark Air Base and Subic Naval Base, both crucial for US military operations, especially during the Vietnam War. This alliance would only grow stronger in the years to come. Big political changes in the 1990s led to the shutdown of key US military bases in the Philippines. But things took a shocking turn when President Duterte shifted his focus toward China, securing massive investments under Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative. This move worried Washington as it weakened US influence in the region. However, despite Duterte's harsh words against America, the strong military and economic ties between the two nations never truly broke. Even when Duterte threatened to cancel the Visiting Forces Agreement, military cooperation continued, proving how important their strategic alliance remained. In 2014, the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement allowed the U.S. military to maintain a rotational presence in the Philippines, further strengthening this bond. Meanwhile, Trump's administration took an aggressive stance against the International Criminal Court. In 2018, National Security Advisor John Bolton called the ICC illegitimate, warning that the U.S. would never accept its authority. This was part of Trump's America First policy, which rejected international organizations that challenged U.S. sovereignty. Trump even threatened sanctions against ICC judges, imposed visa bans, and vowed to punish any attempt to prosecute American soldiers or allies. By 2020, the Trump administration had made it clear the U.S. would not tolerate ICC interference no matter what. The Trump administration took its fight against the International Criminal Court to the next level by slapping harsh economic sanctions on top ICC officials, including the chief prosecutor. This bold move was a direct response to the ICC's decision to investigate alleged war crimes committed by U.S. forces in Afghanistan. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo blasted the ICC, accusing it of wrongfully targeting American troops without any real authority. However, these sanctions sparked global outrage, with human rights groups and foreign governments calling them an attack on justice and accountability. When the ICC later issued an arrest warrant for then Philippine President Duterte, Trump immediately condemned the action, calling it an unfair attack on a sovereign nation. He argued that Duterte's war on drugs was an internal matter, and that the ICC had no right to interfere. Trump's support for Duterte was also a strategic move. He saw the Philippines as a key ally in countering China's growing power in Asia. Throughout his presidency, Trump rejected global institutions that he believed threatened U.S. independence. His stance against the ICC shook the foundations of international law, raising tough questions. Should world leaders be held accountable by global courts, or should national sovereignty come first? While critics claim Trump's actions emboldened leaders with questionable human rights records, his supporters argue that he was simply protecting America's power. This battle is far from over, and its impact on international alliances remains a major global issue. The U.S. backing of Duterte, despite serious human rights abuse allegations, has put huge pressure on America's relationships with other allies who respect and support the International Criminal Court. The world is deeply divided over the ICC's role. While some see it as a crucial tool for holding leaders accountable, others believe it threatens national sovereignty. Human rights groups, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, have strongly condemned Duterte's violent drug war, calling it a state-sponsored massacre. These organizations also blasted Trump for openly opposing the ICC, arguing that weakening the court undermines global justice and protects dangerous leaders. They stress that victims of government violence deserve justice, and allowing leaders to escape accountability sets a terrifying precedent for the future. On the other hand, some countries support Trump's stance, fearing that the ICC interferes too much in domestic affairs. China and Russia, which never signed the Rome Statute, have accused the ICC of unfairly targeting non-Western nations while ignoring the actions of Western powers. This conflict has worsened diplomatic tensions, with the European Union standing firmly behind the ICC. To make matters worse, Trump's administration took an extreme step, imposing sanctions on ICC officials investigating U.S. military actions. The big question remains, can the ICC maintain its authority without overstepping its power? Or will powerful nations like the U.S. continue to defy global justice? The future of international law hangs in the balance. Many experts believe that the International Criminal Court must change if it wants to survive. One major problem is that many countries see the ICC as unfair, accusing it of targeting some nations while ignoring others. To fix this, experts suggest making investigations more transparent and consistent so that all regions are treated equally. If the ICC follows strict rules and ensures fair treatment for all, it could restore trust and prove that it is not biased. Another huge challenge is that the ICC has no real power to enforce its rulings. Unlike a country with its own police and military, the ICC depends on nations to cooperate voluntarily, and many refuse to do so. Experts say that working more closely with the United Nations Security Council could help the court gain more authority to investigate crimes and punish those responsible. The big question remains, can the ICC balance justice and national sovereignty? If it fails, it could lose all credibility, allowing dangerous leaders to escape justice. But if it adapts and gains more power, it could reshape the future of international law and hold the world's most powerful criminals accountable.